That's right. Welcome in. Welcome back to how is the Notre Dame fan base receiving the new wide receiver coach / never, ever in your life trust a Michigan man edition of the Always Irish Show. First off, I am feeling a little bit under the weather. So if my voice isn't perfect or if I'm a little off, that is why. But breaking news doesn't care how you feel. It needs to be talked about. So we're here anyways. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at JKZND4. Emails, alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only. Anywhere you want me, you could get me. Also, if you would like to add some commentary to what you've read and seen, give me a call at 312-900-8815. Always Irish Radio. So, we've all been waiting with bated breath to see how Marcus will fill out the rest of his staff, wide receiver and defensive coordinator positions taking center stage. Last night, news broke on the wide receiver portion of this. I wrote out some show notes. That is what I'm ready to present to you today. Then, boom, I'm at work out of nowhere. Text. Look at Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Mike Elston is returning home to Michigan. We're going to start there. This is a hard one. The timing is bad in terms of hiring somebody else to fill that role. There is no doubt Mike Elston would have been a stable elder statesman of the introduction, the beginning of the Freeman era. Recruiting director under Brian Kelly. Good recruiter, done great things with the Notre Dame defensive line, bringing it from what used to be, most of my cognizant life, a weakness, turned it into a strength. There's no way around it. This sucks. It came out of nowhere. Even the insiders and everybody, nobody seemed to know this was in the works. So what do we make of this? Why is he doing this? I mean, it could be multiple reasons. Change of scenery, really does want to go home. Michigan's his alma mater, wants to go back there, change of scenery. Maybe it's more money. He's been passed over for a defensive coordinator job at Notre Dame multiple times. Maybe he didn't like that. I've heard rumblings of some issues with the play calling in the bowl game and Marcus letting Elston do it and it didn't go well and maybe trying to take some of that control back during the game. I've heard and read all of these things. I don't know what to make of it. What do you want me to say? There's nothing anybody can say. He's leaving. Dead to me. So most guys, you do a good job at Notre Dame, move on somewhere else. I wish them well. Give them a tip of the cap. Thank you for your service to Notre Dame and all that kind of stuff. That applies for almost everybody leaving unless they're going to Michigan. You're dead to me. He will never be mentioned by name again after this show. You're dead to me when you leave and go to Michigan. Okay? Make that crystal clear. Dead to me. So have fun there. Tough spot to be in. Not a lot of time, tight window to fill this spot on top of the defensive coordinator spot. It is what it is. Okay? So nobody saw it coming. The timing's terrible. Nobody knows the reasons. Who cares? Doesn't matter at this point. Water under the bridge. Telling you, I'm not mentioning his name again after this show. You go to Michigan, you are dead to me forever. All right? Never trust anybody, especially a Michigan man, ever. All this family, want to be here for the Notre Dame family. Well, that lasted a month, okay? Don't listen to any of these coaches when they talk like that. It's all family until somebody outside that family offers you more money to join their family. right? That's how it goes. That's just how it goes. So, timing's awful. He did a lot for Notre Dame. I was looking forward to him being a reliable, trusted Notre Dame old head in the building that Marcus could lean on. He's been around a dozen years. Marcus could lean on him. It ain't going to happen. So, tough spot to be in. I texted a last cycle heavily recruited, one of our elite defensive line recruits. I texted his father today about this news, and he just simply responded back to me, not good. So I just wanted to reach out to him, see what he thought of being in that recruit's family angle rather than my angle, and all he said was not good. So this took everybody's first surprise. What are you going to do? It's over now. He's dead to me. Now you got to fill the defense coordinator role and this role. Tough spot to be in, okay? At the same time, nobody likes this. At the same time, nobody said building out Marcus's first staff was going to be smooth sailing, no issues, everything's perfect. We get everybody we want, everything's great. That's not how this goes, all right? And the coaching carousel's wild. It is what it is. You can either cry about it or you can adapt, try and find the next young guy that can build the defensive line and recruit. So I'm not going to sit here and cry about this guy. Yet once you cross that state line, you're in Michigan, may as well be hell because you're dead to me. Okay? So that's that piece of it. Let's move on. Last night, Notre Dame announced they're hiring 38-year-old former Dabo Clemson player and coach, NFL player, and current former Baylor wide receiver coach, Chancey Stuckey, for the position. I must be honest, the reaction to this by the Notre Dame fan base on social media was mostly negative, with some neutral mixed in, me being among the neutral. So why was the reaction so negative to this news? I think it's because Notre Dame fans had the names Shepard from Purdue and Wiggins from Bama on their minds. Those were the names. A lot of people were putting on social media, Shepard was the guy, highlighted him being at Purdue, but also being able to recruit well and be able to produce NFL talent coming out of Purdue. Location, convenient, close to Notre Dame, whatever it is. Seems like everybody had Shepard in their minds. Didn't happen, and then people were disappointed by that, okay? So Shepard and Wiggins are two of the highest rated wide receiver recruiters in the country. Both had interest. We know for sure Shepard interviewed. He's now on his way to Washington officially in the same role he interviewed for here. He's the one people loved. A top 3 wide receiver recruiter, even at Purdue. Multiple guys in the NFL, all that. Lots of articles, Twitter sources seem to indicate wrongly that Shepard was a done deal and was the guy. Notre Dame fans, I think, bit at that too hard. And then when it wasn't him, and when it was a name that we were less familiar with a smaller recruiting history and coaching track record, people freaked out. Now, is it justified to be frustrated with this wide receiver hire? Yes and no. The lack of documentable experience should be of mild concern to anybody hiring any coach to do anything. I'll grant you that. There are rumblings from Notre Dame circles that this is a part of the McNulty-Reese tree from their NFL connections in San Diego. And Stuckey has a connection with some of those circles. So a lot of Notre Dame people are just saying this was a McNulty-Reese comfort crony type hire. I mean, yes and no. I can't blame coaches for wanting to hire guys they're familiar with and have trust with. At the same time, they have to be able to perform. Like, it has to be both. It can't just be, yeah, I trust you and like you, but you're not good. It has to be, I trust you and like you, and you're good. Right? So that covers that crony angle of it. So I get the concerns to a certain extent, but then but some of it's overboard to the extent where I just don't get it. None of us were in the interview room. None of us knows what decisions were made and exactly for what reasons. Apparently, Stuckey blew Notre Dame away by all accounts in his interview. How much does that matter to you or not? Do you take an equivalence of him selling Notre Dame's administration on hiring him for this position? Translate that to him selling recruits on coming to Notre Dame? If he did that good interviewing for Swarbrick, Reese, and Freeman or whoever, is he going to do that for recruiting? Great. Because all reports are he blew everybody away in the interview. But the bottom line is, we don't have the full story. So we cannot make an informed call on whether this is a good or bad hire. It's to be determined. So it's short-sighted when you just look at these resumes and you look at Shepard and just say, I'm looking at this guy's history and Stuckey's and saying it's obvious Shepard's the safe choice. You don't know all the details. You don't know. I don't know. You weren't there. So when you're looking at it on paper and something doesn't make logical sense to you, then I say there's got to be more to the story that we're never going to know. Why can't people just leave it at that? Some of this you're never going to know for a reason. So I'll throw out an example. What if Shepard came in there and made it known that he wants to be an offensive coordinator and this is a one-year thing and he's going to be an offensive coordinator somewhere? Maybe that doesn't work for Marcus because you have Tommy Reese. So there isn't that spot for this guy to get into Notre Dame and then transfer over to offensive coordinator. What if that's in play? And Marcus said, I don't want to do this and have it be 1 year and I have to start all over. Maybe Shepard was that open in his meeting with Notre Dame about his desires to be an offensive coordinator ASAP. And that isn't in the cards here. So it wasn't a good fit. That's just an example of what I mean by you don't know the full story. People are referencing these resumes. You know who looked great on paper? You know who had a pristine resume that looked like it would be a home run hire for Notre Dame? Former Notre Dame wide receiver coach Del Alexander that we just ran out of town with lit torches. He had a great resume. So if you want to go by that, I don't know what to tell you. His resume was great. We just ran him out of town for not being a great recruiter and lack of development in the wide receiver position room. So you can't just go by that. So here's what it all comes down to. I have no reason to question Marcus's decision-making at this time with hiring. I had over a decade of evidence that made me question when Brian Kelly hired people. These are two totally different situations. I had a decade of evidence of what Kelly was doing wasn't going to get us where we need to go. I don't have that with Marcus. So that genuine, open, relatable, very rational personality that we all love in Marcus, the reasons we wanted him to be the head coach. Show your love of all those personality traits by trusting this man's judgment and feel on things like this until it's proven factually that he made a mistake. I'm not going to nail Marcus for the sins of his predecessor. I am going to give him the chance to prove his hires before I judge them. So here's what you do, Mr. Notre Dame fan. You roll with this. You support this, but at the same time, everybody needs to know. Fans, players, staff, Marcus, this guy needs to know. The expectations are elite in the wide receiver room. This has to be an A-plus home run hire instantly. On the field, on the recruiting trail. Instant. Not 2-3 years we see it come together. No. The wide receiver room cannot afford that. This has to be an A-plus hire now. Now. No exceptions. This isn't Notre Dame's tight end room. This isn't Notre Dame's offensive line room. Positions that recruit themselves to a large extent to Notre Dame. This ain't that. So, I'm going to roll with it and support it, but it has to be elite results. Has to be elite results and immediately. On the field, on the recruiting trail. Everybody needs to understand that. This group needs help and fast. Has to be an A-plus with Stuckey. So, I'm rolling with it, but when you have guys interested that have more of a proven history with recruiting and whatever, been around longer, Marcus is putting himself out there a little bit. I'm willing to roll with it, but only if I get elite results. And if I don't, we have a problem. The same problem we've had. So, that being said, contrary to what Twitter would want you to think, there's actually a lot to like here. An all-ACC player under Dabo, NFL playing experience, drafted by the Jets, left the NFL, came back, worked under Dabo, highly regarded by Dabo, coach for Aranda, highly regarded by Aranda, who everybody holds in high regard. He's from Georgia. He went to college in the South. He can recruit in the South. He's under 40, young and energetic. All local reports from Baylor media say that he was great at Baylor. This was a big loss for Baylor, and that Notre Dame folks should be absolutely thrilled to be gaining his services. Baylor's wide receiver group went from, according to Pro Football Focus, 120th to 37th in the 1 year that this guy was there. Here's the other thing. And I'm not suggesting anybody would make a hire based on this or anything. But as an ancillary piece of this, there may be a portal option now as well. Baylor has a wide receiver, R.J. Sneed, already graduated, looking to grad transfer. 133 career receptions, over 1,500 yards. Obviously, Stuckey was his position coach at Baylor. Is that a grad transfer option for Notre Dame at wide receiver? Something to look into for sure. So, I understand people are frustrated, and so am I, especially with this Elston thing. It really hurts. Welcome to college football coaching. We've already learned the last month and a half, it's wild. And right when you think you've seen something wild, something more wild happens. So this is just the way it is. So really tough spot with the Elston and the timing and all that. I'm guessing the guys that came back to play defense for him, that declined to go to the NFL, that wanted to play for him again, can't be happy. I already know from talking to a recruit's dad, didn't sound like they were in love with it, just said not good. It's big time college football, folks. This is how it goes. This is how it goes. So instead of sitting here crying about it, Elston's dead to me going to Michigan. Maybe Marcus could fill this with a young up-and-coming guy and you end up in a better spot. I don't know. But nobody ever said it would be easy building out a solid first staff. It's hard, and it's hard to get it right. I'm willing to give Marcus the freedom to do what he thinks is best, but my bar is really high because Marcus's mission is different than Brian Kelly's. Whether that's fair, unfair, right, or wrong, the bar is higher for Marcus than it was when Kelly came in. Different jobs. Same title, different jobs. Kelly was here to build it, provide that foundation. That's not Marcus's job. His job is to get to the next level. And these hires have a lot to do with it. So I am going to trust that personality in Marcus that I'm so drawn to. I'm inclined to trust it until I'm seeing that there was a mistake made. So I advise all of you to do that as well. Doesn't do you any good to get all mad on Twitter. It isn't going to change anything. So trust in Marcus till you're proven he's made a mistake. That's my only advice. So if anywhere but Michigan, I think that's my big problem with it. Anywhere but Michigan, I'd be a lot more pleasant on the exit. But as it is, you're dead to me. Good night.